Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of YOML, the Year of Magical Learning. Today we're on book 104. We want to learn about learning today. So
Yeah,
let's take it away, Chris.
yeah. So the book for the day is I actually personally this is like one of my I don't want to say is a it's definitely a top 25 favorite here in general overall. The book is Think Like a Rocket Scientist: Simple Strategies that can help you to make giant leaps in your work and life by Ozan Varol. The book is about I forget, did you read this one?
I read half of it.
Oh, you read how you didn't why didn't you didn't want to finish?
No, it not kind of book that I don't know. Maybe because it's the same thing that I've learned, and
Yeah.
I'm more like a scientist anyway. So I said, well, that's nothing new. And so for me, it wasn't that I guess revealing in terms of the kind of things he said. Well, yeah, I mean, you have to think that way to be a scientist. You don't have to
Right.
be a rocket scientist. It has to be in the science arena to follow the same concept. And so for me, it wasn't something that I can learn anything new. So I just stopped halfway.
Gotcha. Well, that's fair. I mean, I actually that's a good transition into my reflection because this was not new to me at the time when I read it, and it was it was it was kind of a big deal for me. So uh, I'll just get to it, I guess, real fast. Sorry, this
Mm-hmm.
person keeps talking about distracted. This person keeps Slack messaging me as we're talking here, and I'm trying to just to it keeps popping up, and it's like driving me nuts. All right, so sharing my screen. So the lesson for the day is don't fail fast, learn fast. And this book, as you mentioned, it is an interesting book. I guess if you're already a scientist, then this isn't probably new stuff for you. But I'm not a scientist, so
Mm-hmm.
this is new for me. But the book was about a former rocket scientist. His name's Ozan Varol. He reveals the habits, ideas, and strategies that'll empower you to turn the seemingly impossible into the possible. So it talks about it's a pretty practical book. It goes through like just different lessons of foundational elements of the thought process around the how a rocket scientist would think about a problem and how they would go about life and diagnosing things and stuff like that. So I personally found it really interesting. He's a former rocket scientist turned professor turned now author. I actually get his just on a side note. I get his weekly emails that he sends out and for his like people that have read his books or whatever and things like that. And I actually really like him. So if you enjoy it, I actually really enjoy his mind. He's got a really interesting creative mind. He seems like he asks interesting questions. And I like him as an author, and I know he's coming out with a new book here soon too. So I'm definitely gonna check it out, and I'll be excited to do so. But for anyway, onto the reflection. This one was one of my first giant leaps, if you will. And I, made that joke if you get it with the moon, like the
Mm-hmm.
whole one small step for a man. It's not just one small step for man, it's one small step for a man.
Mm-hmm.
One giant leap for mankind. But actually I went to Purdue University, which is like the home of all the astronauts. I mean, all the astronauts. Neil Armstrong went to Purdue, and so we have like a slogan there. It's like giant leaps, like Purdue's giant leaps. So like this,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's a term for me that I thought it was funny when I wrote it. So but anyway, this book in particular was one of my first giant leaps in general, and this particular on this journey, the Year of Magical Learning journey, and here's why. So this was about I read this book in May of 2020. If you can remember back to the timeline, my daughter passed away in
Mm-hmm.
April 22nd of 2020. So I think I read this book about I want to say it was probably about 3 weeks after she passed away. And it was it was a giant leap for me because every other book that I've ever read leading up to this moment in time in my life was always for something. Like it was always for an intended purpose. It was always for a project that I was doing or for work, or my mentor had recommended it to me, or my boss had recommended it to me, or I was trying to, start a new business and I was learning for a particular thing or something along those lines, like, or I was in college or I was what, like everything always had like I'm learning for this, and it really was never my choice. I mean, a lot of times, obviously I was choosing what I was learning, but it was never just free will, like, hey, I just want to learn something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this particular book, I mean, putting back into my mindset around this time of my life, like I was still just struggling to get up and move every single day. So like I wasn't living for two yet because I didn't know what living for two was. I was just trying to survive, and I was just trying to leverage whatever strength I could from Amelia to get up every single day and just try to move, to
Mm-hmm.
read something, to write something, to exercise. And I finished the last couple books that I had already, read, or that I'd already downloaded or that I'd already bought or whatever it was, back when she was still alive. And I didn't know what to do. So I just started scrolling through the Audible library and came across this book and I was like, huh, sounds interesting. I don't know why. I was like, I don't know. I just want to learn, see what this is all about. So
Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm saying it was a big giant leap for me personally. Because I've never picked a book like this before in my life. I'd never gone anywhere near something like a topic like this that had no practical purpose in my life, and for me to just, this wasn't like some national bestseller. I'd never heard of the author. Like, I mean, it was literally just, eh, sounds pretty interesting. I mean, I'm trying to force myself to read every single day, to honor Amelia and just keep moving. So I'll try this book. So for me personally, this was a big giant leap, going forward in my own journey. In my opinion, kind of kicked off the year of magical learning. Um, because like it was about learning at that point in time, and I discovered every single day how much I love learning. When I was going through this book and I was listening to it, I was like, this is amazing. This is like really interesting new content. This is I can visibly remember myself, um, uh, you know, listening to this book, going, this is really good. I was like, man, I'm like learning so much. Like I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is crazy. I was like, I didn't know any of this stuff, and it was just really piquing my interest, and I was just really into it. And actually, side note, I finished this book on a really long run. I not only did I finish this book at the same time, um, but I went on like my first hour long plus run. And I was like, you know what? And the only reason I did it was because I was like, I got an hour left of this book. I was like, I'm gonna finish this thing, and I went on a run, and I ran my first like hour, long straight run, and that was a big milestone for me as well because I'm not a runner. Like this wasn't thing. I mean, it was just me and Amelia like out there
Mm-hmm.
doing our thing, as living for two is kind of developing. Yeah, this book holds a lot of fond memories in my heart, I guess. One of the things that it did teach me a lot about, in particular, was beyond learning the core value and discovering, learning something new every single day, which is really, where I feel like this is the start of that. It was also a recognition that, I used to always say, um, we've talked about this a lot, like the stuff that you used to do in the past where you're like, I don't know where it came from and I don't know why I said it, but it's like just a part of the culture that I was in. And I would say it and I kind of believed it, but I used
Mm-hmm.
to always say in my past life, like I fail fast, I like to fail fast, and like it was what everybody always said around me all the time in the tech world. And you hear things like Mark Zuckerberg, I put in here, like, move fast and break things, like, like this is a part of the culture and in the world that I work in and operate in. And I would often hear like these titans, saying, fail fast, like failure, it's failure, failure is what we love, like Google has like failure written all over everything, right? And after thinking about it, after listening to his book, like he shifted my paradigm a little bit. And I was like, man, I don't want to fail. Failure sucks. Like I don't want to wake up every single day and be like, I failed all day today. Like no, I was like, I want to do the stuff that I love to do, and learning was one of them, and I was really enjoying that. I don't want to wake up every single day and go, let's fail for 2 hours like I do when I'm reading my books every single day, or whatever it may be. Like that just sounds stupid and awful and horrible. However, that's when my mind set really started to shift around this time to like learning something new every day, and let's learn fast. Like it's not about failing. You're gonna fail. I accept that. Like, and I'm okay with that. We're gonna fail a million different times, but it's not about the failure is the point. It's about learning fast. It's about understanding what did you learn, and what are you going to apply going forward? That is it. It's not about failure. Like, don't celebrate failure. Celebrate learning and growing and getting better toward whatever your end desire is, whether that be, for me, living for two and spending that time with my daughter or whatever it may be. But like, it's a I don't know. It was a philosophical change in my own mind as I was reading through this book, and I was learning something new, and just really made me think, like, I love learning, and like I want to embrace that. I want to always do that every single day, and something that feeds my soul and it makes me feel closer and connected to Amelia, and I want to continue to do that. So I wrote in the last sentence here, like learning is how I would define me, Chris Sears, not failure. I don't want Chris Sears to be defined as failure. Like, I want to be defined as the things that I do that I enjoy, not the things that, like, I don't know why anybody would want to fail all the time. So anyway, so that's the reflection. I know it was a little bit long-winded for the day, but it was an interesting story to share and reflection of this particular book, because I don't know, it's felt like one of those big giant leap books for me personally. So yeah, I'll pause there and love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, just because people are talking about failure, right? I mean, I don't think they understand what it is.
Right.
Failure is not the goal. The goal is to learn. And if you want to be a scientist, and as a scientist or as anybody in a science world, the way we want to I guess approach scientific process is we basically go in, we try something, we learn something, we eliminate that, we go to the next one. So it's always a progress. It's
Via
always
negativa, right?
yes.
Isn't that what the word is? Did I just use that right? Via
yeah,
negativa? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. All
Man,
right.
I
I
mean,
just learned that one.
I mean, the thing is, you have to learn. Whatever steps you take, you have to learn, and you need to use that lesson you learn to craft your next steps, to craft your next experiment, so that you get closer and closer to the answer. So failure to me is something that people use, but it's a side product of how the scientific community make discoveries, right?
Right. Yeah.
Discoveries is about finding the next step, but it takes you closer to the answer, not just randomly, hey, failure. I agree with you. That's just stupid, right?
It's stupid.
The tech tycoons and all these guys, right? They made it because they're lucky. Okay,
Right.
I'm sorry, but they're lucky. I mean, there are millions of businesses that started out, and they happen to be the one that's lucky, and they made it, right?
Right.
And then they say, well, I look back at it and say, this is what I did. If you ask me, and like if anyone asked you and me how we built company 2 years ago, we're not gonna say, hey, we have this grand plan and we like to fail, and that's
Right.
just stupid, because that's not true. That isn't the reality of it. And so a lot of these tech tycoon, they don't understand. They embrace failure. To me, yes, failure is one of those things where you say, well, did you learn something from the failure? And did you use that failure to nudge you towards the direction where the answer is going to be?
Right.
If you are looking at that perspective, then yes, it resounds like the scientific method. But if you just tell them failure, like failure after failure after failure, right? You can fail 1,000 times and not get anywhere. You can fail 1,000,000 times and not get anywhere. And you think, hey, I failed 1,000 times. I'm going to celebrate that. Let's have some cake, right?
Right.
How absurd is that?
Right.
Right.
I mean,
So to me,
totally
if you
stupid.
think about it, hey, let's celebrate failure, right? So how many times are you willing to fail and never get to the answer? Right. So you telling me that's what you wanted? And I'm sure that's not it. I'm sure that's not what you want. I mean,
No,
I don't
not at all.
care if Google says it. Google say, well, we celebrate failure just because, we happen to get lucky and got to where we are, but by number of failures that we went through, but failure doesn't cause us to become who we are.
Correct.
Right.
So like, I think that there's this weird fallacy that goes on in the world where people are like, look, you cannot ever get to where you want to go unless you fail along the way. So let's go fail, right? Like, like I get the
But
kind of logic where
I
their head is
agree.
going.
I do agree in that sentiment, but that's not your
Let's
the
go learn is what you should do.
yes, yes. Because
Right.
failure is part of the journey, but it isn't what you need to focus on. You need to
No.
focus on making progressive learning to figure out how do I get closer to the answers I want, not
Exactly.
failing. Because I can go in the wrong direction and fail all the time, but doesn't make me becoming more and more. I get to the answer that I want to get, right? If I go in the wrong directions, so failure is about how do I, like I was saying, we basically do a scientific method. We're going to investigate. We make assumptions and we say, well, based on what I know, right, I am going to do these. And the outcome, whether it gives me the answer or not, it's going to give me a data point for me to pivot my data point from what I had before with a new data point. How would that change the path and the trajectory of where I need to go to find the answers? So the failure is saying the outcome isn't what I want, but it is helping me finding the next data point for that to combine with a previous data point.
Right.
For me to take that data point and extrapolate and use some kind of a like in inference to figure out, okay, where do I need to go? I can't just go anywhere randomly and
Right.
expects to find the answers. So you think about how to think like a rocket scientist, right? But that's how essentially what you do is you don't look at from that like normal average person perspective. There is a scientific method to it. You have to follow these things and you have to eliminate and the things that doesn't work, and you're going to use the data point to pivot your path to so that you are on the directions to where you want to be, and that's essentially learning.
Right.
It's not failing, it's
That's
learning.
it. That is exactly what learning is. I mean, if you were, how would you define learning?
Learning is knowing another data point, learning another piece of knowledge, learning another
Yeah.
piece of information, and use that information to help you with the next step.
Right. I
That's
I
learning.
I agree. Like that's a great definition. Like you could easily substitute that word for failure, but I think this goes back to the main point that I was trying to make with this reflection was it's do what you value, right? Like I don't value failing, I value learning. So like when you shift that paradigm in your mind
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to say the words differently, because words matter, right? Like always be
Yes.
impeccable with your words, right?
Right.
So like when you shift that thought in your head to say like, look, it's okay. Like when I'm playing tennis or something like that, and I lost a match, like that's fine. What did you learn? Like like I failed. Like I mean, I failed all day long. I failed bad miserably. I got my ass kicked or something like that. Like
But you
like
shouldn't
I
celebrate failure. You should
right
celebrate learning.
exactly.
If you fail and you didn't learn anything, you should be sad,
Exactly.
right?
That's the worst thing is if you fail and you just go, "Oh, I failed." Like, because if that's the case, then that's exactly what we're talking about. Of don't celebrate failure because you could fail and go, "Well, I failed." Like, I mean, I'll go fail again and do the same
Great.
thing
Yeah.
tomorrow the same way, like, but like
You're
and
fooling
then
yourself
right.
if you want to celebrate failure. Because who in this world loves to fail?
I
That's
don't
just
know. I
against
mean,
human nature.
I
And the tech tycoon are telling you to fail fast and celebrate failure. That's stupid. I mean, I'm sorry, but you got there because you're lucky, not because you're smart, not because you're this or that. Yeah, yes, eventually when you have money and you attract talent, and that's different. But
right.
what give you your start was you were lucky. I
Exactly.
mean, there are millions of startups. I mean, I'm
Exactly.
talking, it's just that, I mean, there are millions of startups that fail and fade into the night. You never heard about them because, they never show up. Because
Right.
you show up doesn't mean that you had anything better. Just, you at the right time, at the right place, and other people overlooked you, right? I mean, Yahoo could have beat you at Google, right? But Yahoo, because they of their blindness, they ignore you.
Right.
Same thing with the telephone and telegraphs, right? The telegraph could have beat you, telephone, but they so it's that is something is not under your control. So you can't say I'm single-handedly will this future for Google or for Facebook or for AT&T or for what, for Apple, whatever. You were lucky. I mean, you look at like Steve Jobs, career. He failed miserably in the past, his last straw was he bought
Oh yeah, the
Pixar.
dream.
He
Yeah,
bought
yeah.
Pixar because Lucasfilm, didn't have a need for Pixar, right?
Right.
And then Pixar is what gave him the comeback, and by chance he was able to come back, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of luck behind a lot of these things that you see. And so the thing
But
is,
to his credit, he learned a lot along the way. I think that there's one thing you could say about Steve Jobs. I know that you and I don't necessarily love the guy, but like, he learned a lot. He didn't celebrate failure. He celebrated he
right,
talks about like learning a lot, like, and he grew, like, and he didn't grow from failing. He grew from learning. Like, yeah, I mean, like,
right,
it's a
right.
subtle difference. It's the same thing, but it's not. It's a big
Right, but
difference.
the thing is, what grabs me is that yes, you got there because you learned, not because you failed. So don't go out there and tell the rest of the world that hey, you guys should fail if you want to be like me. That's
Right.
to me what grabs me, what grinds my gears, right?
Yep.
To me, like go okay, somebody like let's imagine somebody ask us, hey, Christian, True, how do you build company? This is a radical idea, and then I said, oh well, I was so smart, I came from a scientific background, and
Right.
and
This was our hypothesis, and
I
yeah.
have a lot of years of experience in this and
Right.
that. Bullshit. I'm running my mouth like as if what I mean.
I
That's what.
can't remember what book I just finished one recently where they were saying, like, Nintendo started off as like a horse company or something like that. They
Yeah,
went through like all these companies. They're like these world famous brands, and they were like,
Nintendo
what where
was a
were they
Nintendo.
yeah,
Exactly.
where they started at, like, oh, it was I think it was in Anti-Fragile. You rattle
Uh-huh.
off like 10 brands or something like that, where they were like, you know came from absolutely nowhere to do whatever it's doing now. And you can't say that anyway, it is pure
Mm-hmm.
luck. I mean, it really is pure luck. Just keep grinding away, following your
Right.
values, enduring, learning. Like, if you just keep doing what you like to do, eventually you will find whatever that next step is. Like, but like doing I cannot ever stress this more. We talked about this all the time. Do the things that you love to do, and make sure that that's your mindset, and the activities you're doing will never feel tired. They will never get old. I I'm not afraid to say this. I fucking love learning. Like, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
love like learning new stuff every single day. It is addictive. It feeds my dopamine, and it makes me feel like I'm making Amelia proud because her and I are doing this stuff together, right? Like, I will always do that. I will never wake up and going, I want to go get my ass kicked in tennis every single day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just no way. Like, I will never, I don't care if Amelia was like, telling me in my own head, like, look, this is how I want you to honor me, is go get your ass kicked every day. Like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I mean, because I don't think that was what she would want me to do. She wants me to be happy. She wants me to be fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
and she wants me to do the stuff that I like to do. So, and that we can do together. Like, I don't want to do things with my daughter that I don't like to do. Like, who wants to do that? Like, I don't. I mean, nobody wants to do that. Like, whether they're here with you or not. Like, nobody wants to go do stuff with their family members that they don't like to do. Like, like, I mean, so don't say I wake up every single day and have a tea party with your daughter or something like that when you are allergic to tea. You know what I mean? Like, like, it's like, don't do it. Like, like, I mean, it's just it's simple as that. I mean, I don't actually. I almost feel like for once, like, I feel like we can almost cut this conversation off, because this one's just like easy. Like, like, this isn't. I don't know where else we could even take this one, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to argue with me, not you, like, if anybody wants to argue with me about failure, or you and I about failure versus like learning, or how you phrase these things, or how your mindset is, like, bring it on, put it in the comments, and like, let's talk about it. But like, I don't
Yeah,
even, like, I don't even know
like
that
I
there's
say,
even
I
one to
just
talk
don't
about in this
believe
room. Yeah.
anyone likes to fail. I mean, that's just against human nature.
Right. It
Say,
is.
I want to fail. I mean, this it. I mean, you are basically
It's like
bucking the
anti-values.
trend
I know.
of millions of years of conditioning. No one
Right.
wants to fail.
No one. It's
No one.
anti-values. Like, I mean,
Yes.
like values are doing the things you like. Like, I don't know what anti-values are, but like, that's failing to me all day long. You know what I mean? So I'm not into that, and I don't want to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
that sucks the willpower out of me. And as we
It's just
talked
a
about,
fail hour. Anyone.
yeah,
Anyone.
it's
And
finite,
when they
right?
fail enough, it just, they just completely depressed. I mean, they have no no outlook on life. It's just no one fails. If
Right.
you fail, right, it take a toll on you. It's not, some people because of the way they want, but if you are going to be able to take the learning, right, the failure is not going to be so bad. But if you have nothing other than just failure itself, it is going to eat you up from the inside out.
Totally agree. So I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to keep going on this one, but I feel
Like I said,
I
I
feel
think we
good.
beat the dead horse.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not about failing, it's about learning.
Yeah.
Focus on learning,
Focus on
and
your
failure
values.
becomes a side product.
Exactly.
I mean, you're not gonna always find the answer the first time, but continue to collect these data points. What can you learn? What lessons can you take away from the thing that you've done? And then use that data points to extrapolate the next step, to pivot and to change and tweak the path that you will get you to the answers that you are looking for.
Love it. So the question we can leave with all anybody tuning in is, how are you challenging the philosophies that you live by to see if they really are who you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like I said before, for me, I used to say this. I mean, sometimes the stuff that, like, as this journey goes on, sometimes the stuff that I remember, like, of who I wasn't but was,
Mm-hmm.
it just is. I almost want to, like, slap my own face, like, and I'm just like, man, what an idiot. But that's okay.
Right.
Like, it's about
Right.
learning and about
But you
growing,
learn, you
and
learn, you learn, and now you don't do that anymore. So
exactly,
which is the things you want to celebrate, not
exactly.
not the thing that you did badly.
For sure.
Yeah.
So challenge yourself, everyone out there, and drop it in the comments below if you answered the question, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Bye bye.